Hi, this is Letty. I want to show you how to make a good if statement, and so I'm going to show you an example of using it. Now, before you think I'm too awful, I am joking with this spreadsheet. It's sort of funny, but I've set it up to show you my friends and how much the gift they gave me is worth. And the question is whether or not I should stay friends with them. And here is how I'm going to decide. I like all people who give me gifts worth over $50. So you can see in J1, I put in my dollar amount that will determine whether or not they can stay friends with me. And that means that I can create an if statement in this cell here that will say yes or no, or maybe say nothing. I'll say yes or I'll say nothing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this look like a table. It just doesn't look pretty enough for me right now. And that's better. And now I think I'm ready to get going with my if statement. And I am going to unpack not only just this if statement, but I want to explain to you how I hope that you'll begin to work with data when you're putting in formulas. I think it's the only decent way to work with data. It's not what your book tells you, it's not what everybody does, but I've taught a lot of students and I have very good results with students who use this system the way I do. So, of course, the first thing we do is we put in the equal sign to tell it I'm about to type in a formula. I know the formula is an if statement. Now, do you see that it's suggesting I might want to create an if statement? Since it's selected blue, all I have to do to lock it in is press the tab key on my keyboard. And now I want you to notice these prompts that come up here. This is the secret to my success working with very complex formulas. And an if statement is not very complex. It's actually quite simple. There are three arguments, and let me explain what I mean by that. The computer needs to know three things in order to make this formula work. And every time I tell it an argument, I divide that part of the formula from the rest of the argument with a comma. So if the first thing is a logical test, you have to know what a logical test means. And in an if statement, a logical test means what am I going to go and see if it's true? So this is the test. Well, if this dollar amount in B2 is equal to or greater than $50 or what's in cell J1, then that's the test. That I don't say what should happen if it is, but I should say that's the test. Is this cell greater than or equal to this cell? So I'm going to type that in. B2 greater than or equal to J1. Now, since I know I'm going to be copying this formula down, before I even leave J1, I want to press the F4 key to make it absolute. I don't want the formula to copy down that part because then it'll start looking J2, J3, J4 like that. I do want B2 to be a relative cell reference because I do want it to start looking down at these other figures for that part of the formula. Okay, so that's the test, and it's time to finish and go to the next argument. You can see here the prompt says value if true. So I'm going to comma, and now value if true becomes bold, and I'm ready to put this argument in. Well, what if it's true, it's saying. Well, if it is true, I'd like you to print or say, and so I'm going to quote since I'm asking it to say something, yes. That's all I want it to do if it's true. And since I'm done saying what I want it to do if it's true, I'm going to put a comma. And now you'll notice that value if false becomes bold. And I have to say, what do I want it to do if the value is not true? If this number is not greater than this number or equal to it? Well, I want it to print no or say no in the cell. So now I'm done with that argument. I'm putting the parentheses on this end. When I press the tab key to lock in the if statement and get the prompts, it actually put in that opening parentheses for me. But I do have to close it up with a right side parentheses. And so now I'm ready to press enter. And you know, when you have a table, it's actually takes away that step from you that makes you have to copy down because it knows that you want to copy down. I think I'm going to put these in the center of the cell because they're so smack up next to my numbers. And now I can see, aha, I can stay friends with Ted and I can stay friends with Wanda. Everybody else has got to go. I'll say it again. I'm kidding, but I want you to understand um, that the principle for if statements is always going to be the logical test. What am I going to check out? What do I do if it's true? Value of true. And what am I going to do if it's not true? Value of false. And it's that simple. Now, it gets a little more complex when you start nesting things in your if statement, but I think that that's a good beginning for you.